Just got the call that we were getting launched. Going to Larsen Bay for a 20-year-old that had severed his finger.
20-year-old male taking wood to his house. He got slipped and fell. Don't know which finger it is. No medical facilities on hand.
We were heading down there to pick him up and bring him back to Kodiak so they could try to sew the finger back on or reattach it if necessary.
All right, guys, here we go.
The vast Alaskan wilderness. A place where beauty is cloaked by danger. Here, every day, the highly trained men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard risk their lives to save others. America's deadliest waters are protected by Coast Guard Alaska.
And ice going on. The ice is on. Crew part A for taxi. Moving forward.
Snow was coming down real thick and heavy. Visibility was low. We knew that we'd be right in perfect icing conditions.
We have 6 hours to get him to the hospital so they can try and reattach it. Weather looks terrible. They were talking about maybe not sending us.
It definitely enters your mind whether or not we wanted to fly through that storm front. So we had to weigh the risks of flying in pretty severe weather.
Weather's getting worse, it's only getting darker, and he's not gonna get any healthier. And this is what we do.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
We were able to make a pretty good risk versus gain decision at that point.
Crew part A for takeoff.
Ready for takeoff.
Here we go.
Station Kodiak, we're airborne from Kodiak en route to Larsen Bay for a medevac.
Looks like kind of a rain snow mixture right now, guys.
I can still barely see the coastline on the right side.
Visibility was just as low as we had anticipated. We have low visibility routes specifically for situations like this that'll get us out of the area, keep us clear of all land, and get us down to that location.
Did the temperature change from on deck to right here?
It's still showing 1 degree.
Roger. Starting to build a little bit of ice now.
Yeah, got a little bit of ice on my windshield wiper.
We were in icing conditions the entire way. Flying into icing conditions is a very serious event in a helicopter.
And just keep an eye on the leading edges, see if there's significant ice buildup.
Roger that.
It can cause severe power degradation. You can get ice chunks that shed from the engine cowlings and go into the engines. So we were pretty concerned.
So there's snow in Larsen Bay, right?
Yeah, just thinking about getting some stuff to pack the finger in.
Yeah, snow would be perfect.
You know, a 20-year-old male, possible severed finger. I'm thinking, you know, how am I going to care for this individual? In an ideal situation, wrap it up in gauze, put it in a Ziploc bag, and then put it on ice.
You guys are coming up on the tightest part of the low vis route up here.
Roger that.
Yeah, probably got about 1/8 of a mile vis right now, guys. We should be on deck in about 12 minutes here.
Being that we got here in a timely manner, the odds of saving his finger were greatly increased.
I got the runway in sight right off the nose. Crew part A for approach.
Ready for approach.
So pretty challenging transit. We really couldn't see anything until we were on final approach into Larsen Bay.
No, they're sitting down.
We landed at the airstrip, and there was a truck standing by.
Tails on deck, Spain on deck.
Set, you're cleared out. All right, I'm gonna go off ICS.
All right, Darren, let us know if you need anything, bud.
Okay.
I walked over to the vehicle. You know, I thought I was gonna pull up and someone's gonna hand me a finger. With him was actually a nurse. The finger was actually still attached by skin. That's how she had wrapped it up. The nurse practitioner had already given him medication. He was in good spirits. So the best thing that I could do for this patient was to get him in the helicopter, get him strapped in.
You guys ready to roll? Yes, sir, ready to take off.
All right, guys, power's going in.
Seamless transition from the clinic down there. Had him packaged up and ready to roll in about 2 minutes after being on deck there.
And we'll come up to 200 feet, 70 knots, pick up that little vis, fly back.
Starting to build a little bit of ice now again.
Took off out of there, and we got back into poor visibility. Pretty much the same thing we had coming in.
How you doing, Derek?
I'm good. They gave me a pain pill, so I don't feel it. I was in some bad pain, like almost unbearable for me, but I'm good now. My finger was just hanging by skin. It was gross.
Yeah.
I've never seen nothing like it before, but...
So the bone was definitely
It wasn't attached either.
He was talkative, told us kind of what happened, so we were able to like kind of assess the situation pretty well.
You can take that piece of tape off right there if you need to look at it.
Yeah, we'll just leave it on. She did a pretty good job of stabilizing it.
I came out here, out to Larson Bay to spend Thanksgiving with my family out there, and ended up staying out there, just working.
So you got plenty of places to stay in Kodiak, though?
Yeah, my father lives in town.
Gotcha.
Overall, he had a positive attitude. He was talking with us, having friendly conversation, and where he was from and why he was in Larson Bay.
How's your finger doing?
Starting to hurt a lot more.
Yeah. Is it throbbing?
It's throbbing like hell. Feels like the tip of my finger's about to pop off.
After about an hour of him flying, the meds started wearing off.
Keep it above your head like you got it like that, so no blood comes to it, and that's when it starts throbbing.
Almost there, bud. We got probably 25 minutes to go here.
Right on. Fuck, it's just starting to hurt.
We could tell he was in substantial pain, so we were making our best efforts to get here in a timely fashion.
All right, airfield is in sight.
We're ready for approach.
Ready for approach.
These small villages don't have a lot of medical care. Something like a finger is way outside of their capabilities, so it's awesome to get in there and hopefully save this guy's finger, at least ease pain and suffering, get him back here and get him cared for quickly.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Hopefully they get that thing right for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully I don't lose the tip of it.
My name's Derek Anthony Hawkmuth. I was collecting firewood. I started carrying it on my shoulder, walking down a hill. It was snowing, and I just happened to slip back, and the log landed on my finger. I looked at my glove, and my glove was just pouring blood. Pulled my glove off, and my finger just fell off to the side. The only option was to call the Coast Guard. When I saw the helicopter it just took a lot of weight off my shoulders because I was really scared of being stuck out there and not being able to get to help.
When did it happen? About 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
I'm really happy that the Coast Guard is around because if anything bad ever happened out there, they'll be there. Thank you guys for everything that you've done for me.
21-year-old male who had a 75-foot fall approximately 1,000 miles from here.
Keep your patient where he is. We're going to send our rescue swimmer down.
He had a open fracture to the wrist and also possible brain injuries.
Swimmer's going down.
So burn victim, 56, was in a house fire last night.
He had burns all over his shoulders, his ear, his nose.
The clinic in Haines called and said that they're running out of meds, and that the cap runs out at around noon.
He requires a great deal of sedation based on his injuries, and they were running short on those medications.
We are working a SAR case for a 21-year-old male who had a 75-foot fall on a 730-foot cargo ship, which is approximately 1,000 miles from here.
The initial call told me that we were going to hop on a C-130 and meet the helicopters down in Kodiak, so I knew there was at least one other crew going to ferry the helicopters out. It turns out there was actually 4 other crews ferrying 2 helicopters all the way out to Kodiak.
All right, ready for takeoff. Ready for takeoff.
When a rescue is over 1,200 miles, we launch 2 H-60s to go all the way out to Kodiak, Alaska. And because of time and fatigue on those crews, they couldn't just ferry the aircraft all the way there. They had to be swapped out. The first swap was in Cold Bay, in which a C-130 brought in another crew. And then further on in Kodiak, Alaska, a C-130 brought in a final crew that would execute the hoist.
As soon as we arrived in Kodiak, we swapped crews with the helicopter crew that flew there. When I stepped off the C-130, it was raining sideways. The wind actually almost blew me off my feet.
Just it's going to be bumpy, so let's, like we said, take off. We can slide left here on a 36 and do a quick orbit, see if we can get out that way. It's a little bumpy. I can see the terrain. I think it's fairly low there, so I'm comfortable doing I'll do the right hand over like we're talking about. That sounds good. Bringing up an altitude a little bit, see if we can't see across.
So we departed ADAC and flew as direct as we could to the scene.
By the way, nice takeoff, gentlemen. Pretty windy, no doubt. So we're showing 55 minutes out, guys, and it'll probably take us a hair longer to get back just because of the wind.
On the C-130, we found out kind of the extent of his injuries. We heard that he had extensive injuries to his face, as well as his wrist and arm.
So who's got the pictures of the victim? I got him back here.
Sometime in the morning, when we were going to take off, I was able to talk to the flight surgeon, and he got pictures of the survivor, how he was positioned when he fell, and I knew to bring a splint for his arm. I knew just exactly what to bring to help this survivor.
All right, Paul, Madison, you guys have both seen the pictures. Paul, what's your thought process for getting there? Get hoisted down, and I'll bring the backboard with me. Get them secured in that, and then do a litter hoist. That's pretty much what I was thinking.
So heading out to the scene, it actually started kind of clearing up a little bit. The winds were still kicking, but the ceiling and visibility cleared up a little bit. That was nice, since you're talking about a pretty big boat, and if you're coming in there at low altitude, it can get a little sporty as far as not trying to smack into the thing.
Vessel Cynthia D. Muller, this is Coast Guard helicopter on channel 16.
Yes, Coast Guard, United States, Sitka, D'Amato, reply.
This is D'Amato. We have you in sight, sir. We'll be orbiting your vessel for a few minutes while we set up for hoisting. Okay.
The ship was Italian flagged, and the crew member on board the ship who was injured was an Italian national, but none of that really matters. We do the response the same every time, regardless of what ship it is or what nationality of the person who's in trouble.
Coast Guard, Sitka, D'Amato. May you advise us when we can bring our new members?
And sir, if you could keep your patient where he is, we're going to send our rescue swimmer down to evaluate him and prepare him for hoist to the helicopter. How copy? Okay.
When we got on scene, we did an area recon of the vessel in the hoist area to make sure that there was no large cranes, antennas, any kind of obstructions that could be any kind of a detriment to us moving in to conduct the hoist.
The superstructure is going to be the biggest hazard, George. You'll be responsible for that. We got plenty of room for it. Roger. You bring a swimmer to the door. Be ready for an harness deployment of swimmer to the deck of the vessel. Check swimmer. Roger, check the swimmer. And swimmer is ready. Position's good, sir. You'll be in the hoist. And load check's complete. Swimmer's going down. Swimmer's going down. Swimmer's about halfway down, about 10 feet from the deck. And swimmer's on deck. Swimmer's away. Swimmer's okay.
So the first hoist went pretty smooth. The winds were still kicking up, but we didn't get bumped around too bad.
1-0, swimmer. Roger that. Yeah, go ahead and just start getting that litter ready, and I'll start packing up the base and move backboard.
Roger that.
When I arrived on deck, I knew it was going to be difficult because of the language barrier. No one on board spoke any English. So we had to come up with just on-the-spot sign language to communicate to each other.
Just should be having the 60 pretty close, so keep eyes outside looking for the other 60. Okay, I got them at 4 o'clock. 6003, 6010 on 21. Vessel Cynthia D. Muerto. Just wanted to pass you, sir, that there is a second helicopter that is in the area with us.
Roger.
Generally speaking, we're going to fly that far offshore. We like to have self-cover, so we like to have a second helicopter in the area in case the primary helicopter has an issue and has to ditch in the water.
And I have the litter rigged and ready to go. Roger.
They actually had the survivor up on the second deck of the ship. Went up there, he was in a little room, crowded room. There was about a dozen or so people in there, all standing around him. They looked very concerned. And everyone looked at me like I was the guy that knew it all. I kind of had to be that guy at that point.
And coming from the 10, just checking in, see if you're about ready for that litter. My nose can't pull. Trying to get that guy on the backboard right now.
Yeah.
Someone had fallen 75 feet onto the deck of a ship off of Adak Island, and he had a open fracture to the wrist and also possible brain injuries.
And I have the litter rigged and ready to go. Roger.
They actually had the survivor up on the second deck of the ship. Went up there, he was in a little room, crowded room. There was about a dozen or so people in there, all standing around him. They looked very concerned.
And coming from the 10, just checking in, see if you're about ready for that litter. Right, taking time to get that compound fracture.
Yeah. He had a broken wrist, he had swelling in the ankles, extreme pain everywhere. It was a very difficult process to get him from the bed that he was on onto the backboard because of the amount of pain that he was in. So every movement had to be perfectly choreographed and communicated to everyone that was in the room helping out.
There he is, coming out. Rest checklist complete, ready for when litter delivery to the deck of the vessel. Roger, I have target in sight. And litter's going down. 10 feet from the deck, 5 feet from the deck, and litter is on deck.
Once we got the survivor strapped into the litter, I had a couple of his crew members help me carry him over to the good hoisting position and signal to the helicopter, ready for them to move in for pickup, and then it's pretty much in the flight mech's hands at that point.
Hey, Madison, when I bring him in, I'm going to need you to stand up right there and help me just maneuver in to make sure that the litter stays tight to the deck so we slide it back, okay? Roger that.
It was pretty windy at the time. I had to make sure that the litter wasn't swinging around too much and spinning. And there's nothing worse than being strapped in a litter and spinning uncontrollably.
Easy forward. And hold. Litter below cabin door. Hold position.
The main thing you're looking for is when you bring the litter level with the aircraft, you want to make sure you bring them in a smooth one motion. You want to make sure that you're not dipping them down to the point where they feel like they might be falling.
Litter outside cabin. And litter is inside cabin and hoist complete.
After the survivor was safely in the cabin, I signaled that I was ready for pickup, and they pulled me up into the cabin.
And swimmer is inside cabin and hoist complete.
We picked up the patient and I did a quick assessment and he was stable. There was some medical interventions that I could have done, but because it was such a short flight, I didn't want to risk anything when I knew that there was higher medical care waiting for the survivor.
I decided not to start an IV in the guy just because of the space. He's pretty stable right now.
As soon as I got in the helicopter, it was past me that Guardian flight was waiting in Adak for us, and that was only an hour-long transit. From there on out, it's just keeping the survivor comfortable and keeping an eye on his vital signs.
He wants your hand.
Having a tough day. Probably scared out of his mind. I don't want to hold him in hand too.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
I like his stuffed animal. That's cool.
Give those to every patient. Well, I have those for little kids, but seeing as he wants to hold hands, I thought he might like it.
I could tell he was in a lot of pain. He was nervous, and he just wanted to hold my hand the whole time. So it's just, you know, whatever it takes to make him comfortable.
15 minutes out, guys.
Roger.
Roger that.
Visibility in ceilings had dropped a little bit on our way back into Adak. Compounding that was the fact that it had turned into nighttime by the time we got back. However, we were able to make it almost a direct line back and meet the life flight plane.
I got the landing site there off the nose. Good to go. You guys all ready for approach? Ready for approach.
Once we landed in Adak, Guardian Life Flight aircraft was there ready to receive the survivor from us.
So, 21 years old, he's got a fractured right wrist.
The paramedics came up. I gave them a good pass down of what was going on.
Got a contained palpation on lower left quadrant of the abdomen.
This case was definitely unique. I think probably the biggest thing that kind of stuck out in my mind was just how many people were involved. It was a huge evolution, and it was cool to be a part of that. One of the ones I'll definitely remember for the rest of my career.
Probably the most noteworthy part of this case for me is the entire flight back He just wanted someone to hold his hand. When you see that someone really genuinely appreciates that you're there, and after the experience they have been through, it was quite astounding.
'83-year-old female on the Norwegian Pearl.
She had a really bad heart attack. They were doing CPR on her and shocking her before we got to her.
If she crashes at any point, we're going directly to the clinic. Not even going to take it, all right? Ready for approach. Ready for approach.
All right, so while this is loading up here, we'll go ahead and get our brief knocked out. Mission requirements, 83-year-old female on the Norwegian Pearl up near Skagway. The weather up there is showing 400 overcast, but here it's nice, so we should be able to cut off quite a bit of that. We have a elderly woman having heart issues off of a cruise ship in Skagway. So we got everything we need for heart attack patient.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any questions?
Underway, right?
No, they're moored.
They're moored, okay.
When we found out fairly early that the ship was moored and that we were to meet the ambulance there who was going to take our rescue swimmer and corpsman over to the patient at the cruise ship, and they would make sure she was stable there before they brought her back over to the helicopter. Anybody else have anything else to add or questions? All right.
Ready for taxi. Ready for taxi. Sir, did you know, this is Coast Guard 6030. Rescue 6030, this is Hector, Roger.
When we first found out about the call, she had a really bad heart attack. They were doing CPR on her and shocking her before we got to her. So we're just going to fly as fast as we can and get her to Juneau as soon as we can.
How long did she go down?
And all the information you had been actively having CPR, shocked her, and then we're able to stabilize her with.
So hopefully she's intubated.
She was found pulseless, and as a health service technician, we have a lot more background in the medical care aspect, so we're kind of that extra pair of hands.
All right, so here's the plan to Maya. If she crashes at any point, we're going directly to the clinic. Not even going to take her, all right? If she crashes anywhere in the boat to the pier, take her right back, and the doc takes care of her. All right?
Yeah.
One of the big things that Maya and I are both worried about is she's had a pretty significant heart attack earlier in the day, which means that she has a higher risk of actually having it again as soon as we get her off the boat, away from that higher care. So for us to really talk this over and figure out what's going to happen at certain stages of the transfer to the plane is really important.
Now, this individual is indeed something, having pretty bad heart attack. She's with a spouse. You're going to want to take him. Yeah, do we even have room back there? I can make room, sir. You make room. Yeah, run that by sector and see if they told them anything about that. Any request for that? Roger that. And Sector Juneau from Rescue 30. Request to know if the individual will have a spouse with them.
Cruiser Sector, Roger. Be advised that the patient has a 60-year-old daughter that is with her at the time, and if there's room on board, she'd like to transfer back with you guys. How about it?
Sector, that's what we wanted to know. Yeah, that's absolutely. We'll take the daughter with us. Ready for approach. Ready for approach. Ambulance is here.
When we landed in Skagway, HS3 and Chris both get off the plane, take the litter with them, and the ambulance was going to take them over to the Norwegian Pearl. We're ready to roll.
Okay, let's go.
We don't know how bad she is. So if at any point she crashes, we take her right back to the boat immediately.
One of the good things is when we go to Skagway is that we have the help of the EMS crew that's there. And we've worked with them quite often, so we all kind of know how each other works.
How's she doing?
Chris has a lot of experience taking patients off of cruise ships. So once we were on scene, we decided to use a lot of their gear. It fits in the elevators better than ours do. And we also had to be prepared to climb a lot of stairs.
How you doing? My name's Chris. What's your name? Delphine. Delphine? Ooh, I like that.
As I walked in, I was a little bit concerned. She did look very frail and she looked very exhausted. She was having a hard time keeping her eyes open. So that kind of put me on edge a little bit.
When we got there, she was unresponsive, abdominal breathing. Okay. The relative is EMS, so they started CPR.
She had collapsed in the early hours of the morning. She was having agonal breathing, which is almost a sign that they're passing away at that time.
All right, well, young lady, you get to go for a helicopter ride. 1, 2, 3. Getting the individual from the cruise ship over to the airport, which is where our plane is, we use their ambulance. We let them handle the patient on their litter, and we just kind of cover up behind and make sure that the individual's safe and protected.
Do you get motion sick at all? Okay, if you start to feel sick at all, just let me know. We'll try and sit you up a little bit so you're feeling a little better and get you a bag, okay?
All right, Delphi, a couple more minutes and we'll be up and flying, okay?
So at this point in time, the EMS vehicle has returned with Chris and my HS3. So at that point in time, I'm clearing people in and out of the rotor, getting the patient into the helicopter with Chris, helping him out, and getting her stable and laid down.
Hey, for takeoff, check those group for takeoff. Ready for takeoff, sir? Camera. The first thing that we do is we hook her up to the monitor, which monitors her heart and her blood pressure. So throughout the flight, myself and Maya are constantly monitoring the individual and the monitor. So you're getting an inside picture while you're also looking on the outside picture of her. Well, pulse is a little higher than what we were down there. And look at her blood pressure's way up. Let's monitor it, because I see the stress of flying.
Her blood pressure was a little bit high, which was concerning, but with stress of, walking someone up to the helicopter can cause someone's blood pressure to go up. So we were just kind of monitoring her at that point.
She's getting nauseous. She needs to sit up a little bit. Heart rate's going up, but it's not as strong as it was. Just trying to keep her comfortable position like this for a little bit, see how she does. Fine. Blood pressure went way up too. Unfortunately, she did get sick. So with us worrying about her with her heart attack, we don't want her to get more stressed, and especially with being airsick can truly get you stressed out. So keeping her calm and let her know that it's okay that even we get sick sometimes kind of calms the individual down, which takes less stress off of her heart. Sector Juneau, Rescue 6030, be advised we are on final approach in Juneau.
Once we got into Juneau, the weather was clear there. We were able to talk directly with Tower, get some priority for landing, and go right to the Guardian hangar, which is where we're delivering the patient to.
Welcome to Juneau.
We have her in a kind of in a lift sheet, so we can just open this up and just set it right on here? Yeah. Okay. One of the good things about the Coast Guard, and the reasons why I've stayed with them for so long and enjoyed my life with the Coast Guard so much, is that we can take these sick individuals and we know that we can get them better care, in better shape, better places that they need to be. All right, Delphi, it was a pleasure meeting you, but next time it'll be under better circumstances, all right? You're welcome. For me, it's something that I've lived for, lived with, and it's been such a part of my life that it's very satisfying in my life.
My name is Delphine Hoover. I was on a cruise for relaxation. And after 3 days, I had a heart attack, and that's the end of everything I remember.
Mother woke me up 4 o'clock in the morning and said she was having chest pain and nausea and couldn't move. So we evaluated the situation and started CPR first aid. We called the hospital crew. They did CPR. They gave her 2 shots. They had decided that she was gone. And all of a sudden, she took a breath. When we heard that the Coast Guard helicopter was coming in, it was a huge relief, because at that point, I knew that they were going to get her to a higher level of care. I remember Chris, when she said she was going to get nauseous, he held her up until the nausea subsided. To me, that was above and beyond. I couldn't thank him enough.
I'm very thankful, I keep saying. They couldn't have done it without them, and that's why I'm here.
So burn victim 56 was in a house fire last night.
He had burns all over his shoulders, his ear, his nose.
The clinic in Haines called and said that they're running out of meds and that the half runs out at around noon.
He requires a great deal of sedation based on his injuries, and they were running short on those medications.
So today, again, it's a mega code. We're gonna do this like it normally happens. Duty crew shows up first to a call. Our duty crew tonight is Shane, Maya, and I'll rotate the rest of you in as we go.
My name is Maya Dejnakal. I'm a health services technician, second class at Coast Guard Air Station Sitka. We're at the Sitka Fire Department tonight. I volunteer here, so we get together twice a month and practice our EMS skills.
Okay, duty squad, you're just gonna call in to an unresponsive person.
All right, I'm gonna check pulse. No pulse, I'm gonna start CPR. Training we get here is just incredibly valuable. These are things that we always need to do in our job, need to be proficient at. You know, you never wanna roll up on scene of a cardiac arrest and be kind of scratching your head and trying to remember what the protocols are.
100 milligrams of Lidocaine ready for injection when you're ready.
Go ahead and push it.
We try to protect the people of this community, and the best way to do that is to train hard and practice hard. So when we do need these skills in the field, it's like a second nature.
All right, we just rolled up here to a motor vehicle accident. We get someone inside and can't clear their spine, and we need to get them out of this car.
I'm gonna grab C-spine.
Now in Southeast Alaska, most of your EMS agencies are volunteer. They don't get paid to do this. They're the ones that carry a pager, and they get called out in the middle of the night to go help someone they may or may not know.
All right, front.
Yeah.
All right.
So really
Okay.
just CMS, let's get them out of here.
Okay. Sitka is a really small town, so it's important that all of us kind of pitch in and do our part. There's a lot of us that volunteer here, not only from the Coast Guard, but there's a lot of people that volunteer from the hospital. There's people from the civilian medevac agencies.
I'm gonna put a collar on you real quick. Try not to move your head around too much for me, okay?
We do train together, we work together, all with the goal of, keeping everybody safe, keeping our patients safe, and getting to the hospital as soon as possible.
Breathe, 1, 2, 3.
Volunteers, they don't get paid just because they're priceless.
Have you heard the whole thing? So burn victim 56 was in a house fire last night. He's burned over a fair portion of his body.
There was a patient in Haines waiting for a medevac. He had been burned really badly in a house fire at about 2 a.m.
Juneau is terrible and getting worse. Getting into here, apparently Guardian's not there right now, so they're not going to be able to get into it.
The weather is bad enough that commercial services couldn't fly in and medevac came out, so that's why we got the call.
The clinic in Haines called and said that they're running out of meds and that the half runs out at around noon. And that there may be an oxygen issue too.
This definitely wasn't a regular medevac. Our report was that this patient had second and third degrees over 25% of his body. That's a very severe burn victim. He was paralyzed with medications and he was on a ventilator. He was intubated. We ended up taking along a paramedic from Guardian Flight. We absolutely needed that higher level of care from that paramedic to be able to manage the patient's medications and the ventilator throughout transport.
And what's the warmest place in here?
The warmest place is gonna be, well, we can hang it from here. And it'll be right in front of those 2 heaters.
Perfect. Medevac service in Alaska is extremely vital. There's limited health care, especially in the smaller villages. And in Southeast Alaska, when the weather falls below minimums, we rely on the Coast Guard to get to these smaller communities where people need help.
You ready for taxi? Ready for taxi. All right, parking brakes release. Cable switches thermal. We'll come on forward.
So while we're working out the planning, we ran into 2 major problems. There was a timeline that the hospital there in Haines was going to be running out of medicine by the afternoon that he needed. And complicating things was wintertime in Alaska. This situation is not necessarily the standard way that we operate, but command was briefed up at all levels, all the way up through the district, and everybody looked at what our options were, and we went ahead with the best team that we could assemble.
So what's our plan right now, sir? We're going to go straight up there and then try and book to Gustavus?
We're going to look at it. Still up in the air right now.
Okay, roger.
The gravity of the situation is his airway has already been secured by the providers in Haines. However, he requires a great deal of sedation based on his injuries, and they were running short on those medications that were keeping him comfortable and his airway secured.
Rob, Shane, what's your guys' plan once we get on deck?
I'm going to get everything pre-ready, so it should be just a matter of unhooking them from the ambulance's equipment and putting them on mine. Maya, if you want to help me carry the litter, and then we'll ferry whatever gear you need out there, and then when you say go, I'll be ready to help you package the patient, and then plug them in once I get them in here. Roger that.
So in flight, we did a lot of planning and discussing different ways the situation could be handled. Going in there, you know, we didn't know what to expect. A lot of times people overestimate how badly they were burned, so we really wanted to get in there and see what we were dealing with.
And Sector 25, be advised, we are approximately 5 mics out from Haines. It's relatively clear, but it also looks kind of icy.
Once the aircraft starts getting cold, and especially if we start getting frozen precipitation building up on it, we're limited. We're not able to continue flying. Along with that, this patient was on IVs, and keeping the patient warm in sub-zero temperatures here in Alaska was a major concern.
Do you guys mind throwing on the heat pack here now?
Yeah, for sure. Cabin door, we'll call it on short final. And it'll be fine to open it, and then we'll close it again and try to warm this place up while you guys are gone.
Roger that.
Rob, Shane, what's your guys' plan once we get on deck?
I'm going to get everything pre-ready, so it should be just a matter of unhooking them from the ambulance's equipment and putting them on mine.
There was a house fire up in Haines, Alaska, and someone was badly burned in that fire. They've been treating him all night long, and they need us to pick him up and get him to a higher level of care.
Crew report, ready for approach, and Tim, remind me about the door when we're on short final, please.
Roger that. Ready for approach.
Coming in for landing, there was probably 6 inches of snow still on the ground there on the airport itself. So as you're coming in, it's a complete whiteout situation. It's difficult to judge the depth.
Approach code open. Cloud is well below us and probably right behind the cabin door.
15 feet to go. 7. Roger. Park brakes set. And you guys are cleared out.
Roger, sir. I'm up 2-3. Need to get a hold of me.
Roger.
So we'd gotten to Haines, and we knew it was going to be an extended delay on the ground because it takes some time to package up a critical patient like that and get everything transferred over.
And Maya's coming out now.
His whole back of his head was burned. Pretty much his entire upper back was burnt. He had burns all over his shoulders, his ear, his nose. That pain is so severe that we just didn't even want him awake and having to deal with that. So besides the fact that we were using medication to sedate him, he was also on a very high amount of pain medications as well, just in case he were to wake up.
So they're pulling him out, Tim. Roger that. And they're coming in now.
After we got the patient loaded into the helicopter, we made our changes to the medications that we wanted to make. The weather at the time went to 0, ceiling, 0 visibility. That left Juneau out of the question. However, you know, just a few miles away in Gustavus, the weather was actually improving.
All right, sounds like we're going to Gustavus, Tim. Guardian's going to be there in about 15 minutes.
You guys ready for us to move a little bit? Yeah, you're good.
Our first concern was how are we going to keep this guy warm in the cabin? His burns were causing him to be hypothermic. You know, your skin is what regulates your body's temperature, and he was not able to regulate his own temperature. Even in the clinic, his temperature was 95 degrees. This patient absolutely needed to get to a burn center and get the treatment he needed so that he wouldn't die from infections or just from the burns alone.
How's the temp back there?
warm. See any red lights come on that on the vent? Let me know. It'll be this bar at the top.
Roger.
He's getting a lot of stimulation right now and isn't moving. I think we found our sweet spot for sedation.
We're getting as close as possible. AP is already running. We are going to shut down. That'll help you guys out. We need fuel anyway.
First thing I remember is being alerted that the house was on fire. When I got to the top of the staircase, it was so hot I had to sit down to scoot down the stairs. In the course of that, I think I lost consciousness. We were that close to not getting me out. No doubt I was in shock. From there, it's pretty sketchy. I got on my feet, I don't even remember how. I noticed I had a lot of skin hanging off me and I was burned up. But I made it about 40 steps down to my vehicle. And because of the blizzard, I figured that the EMTs would take a while to get out, so we figured we'd head towards town and meet them. It's really difficult to put into words, but if it wasn't for the Coast Guard, I wouldn't be sitting here today, I don't think. The Coast Guard's vital to the community in Southeast because we're all so scattered out. I'm sure that the people that are doing it are pretty aware of how important it is. But as the person that received the help, my gratitude is not limited just to the people on the helicopter because I know there's an awful lot of support behind that, so I'm thankful for the Coast Guard, period, to be there for me.